Our circumstances don't define us. Our actions do. We all have moments of impact. What are you going to do with yours? Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Living the Sweet Life. I'm your host, TJ Sweet. And on this podcast, we are bringing some people who are probably going to change your life. They're probably actually going to transform it. They're going to do more than change it, because the guest we have today, her name is Kim Becking. And the impact that she's had on my life is tremendous. And the fact that I even get to have her here is an honor in itself. She's shaking her head at me right now. If you're watching, you can't hear her shake her head, but she is. She's a very humble person, but she is a giver. She's an impact maker. She's a game changer. She is a speaker. She does so much for so many groups of people. And we're going to dive into a lot today. And my encouragement for you is to really remind yourself that you're growing, that you're learning. And then I'm going to use a phrase now that Kim's going to explain later, but you're allowed to feel what you feel. You're allowed to feel overwhelmed and feel stressed, and also happy and loved. So settle into what you feel like you're allowed. Maybe you need to convince yourself more about what you're allowed. And I'm going to use Kim's phrase as I hand it over to her, but we're going to talk about the so muchness and how busy things are. But you are choosing your time today on Mindset Monday to dig into this podcast with us. So I just encourage you to settle in, give us everything you have, because we're going to give you everything we have. So with that, I will introduce Kim Becking. Kim is a speaker that I've had the chance to know for a little bit now, but she is not just a speaker. She is a message sharer. She's a movement maker. And she also does some coaching and facilitating. She does a bunch of different things. But Kim, first of all, thank you for being here. And thank you for everything you've been doing for me as a person and as a speaker over the years.
Oh, thank you, my friend. I'm so excited to be here with you today, TJ. So I wasn't expecting TJ to say all of these amazing things. I'm about in tears.
Yeah, that's why I didn't tell you beforehand. I kind of lied to you just a second ago, saying I was just going to do my normal intro and hand it off to you. But I will share a little nugget about Kim just so that people know what kind of person she is. Because I'll tell you, of all the ways that we make an impact in the world, what we do is impactful, but who we are and how we show up for other people is transforming. It's incredible. And I was working at the Lake Hospital a few years ago, and I just connected with Kim. And she didn't know me from anybody else, really. We had a Columbia, Missouri connection. We were MIZ. We had that connection with us. And she was speaking at an event down at the lake, and she said, "Why don't you come over and let's chat?" Now, I'm a speaker as well, but I know how busy that day is, and I know how busy your mind is and all the prep and all the work you're doing, and she still made time. We sat right next to a fireplace in a hotel, and we just talked. She said, "What can I do for you? How can I show up for you? How can I serve you?" And we didn't really know each other that much then, but that showed me everything that I needed to know about Kim. And she's been consistent with that from day one. And then I got to hear her speak. It's who she is. She shares messages through that same lens of how can I show up for you? How can I serve you? But she has a very interesting, powerful story. But I want to get into your message, if you're okay with that, with Kim, because I got to hear a little bit about the so muchness and the you are allowed, but the so muchness piece of everybody listening has a million things to do. Some of those million things are things that they have to do. Some of those things they said they wanted to do. Some of the things they're at work they have to do. So talk to me about like just this sense of like, what are you encountering as you go all over the nation? What are you encountering, and how are you helping people understand what this so muchness is, and how do they break free from feeling like that all the time?
Yeah, absolutely. So probably about 3 or 4 years ago, I was kind of diving deeper into all of the research and the surveys that I was hearing from leaders. And it really did not matter what industry. It did not matter what their role was or what hat they were wearing. Everybody was feeling overwhelmed and exhausted. And as I started to kind of peel back the layers of that onion, what I realized was Originally, I was like, oh, it's because you're dealing with so much change. And yes, they're dealing with so much change. And right, the old way of change was you deal with one change and then you move on to the next change. The old way of change management is dead, right? And so we're dealing with 20 different changes all at the same time. But it wasn't just the change, it was the uncertainty. It was the too much to do and not enough time. It was the 24/7 world we're in, where our bodies and our brains aren't made for the world we're in today, right? It was the doom scrolling. It was the news. It was the kids. It was the aging parents. It was all of the things that created this so muchness and this feeling of, no matter what, I feel like I can't catch my breath. I can't slow down. And what I learned as a part of really kind of peeling back those layers and really developing this whole concept of so muchness in this world that we're in is that our bodies and our brains are not made for the world we're in today. We were never meant for a 24/7 nonstop world. So how do you continue to build your capacity, recharge and refuel yourself, and really build what I call sustainable resilience? Because can we talk for real for a minute? Like, how many of us are tired of hearing the word resilient, right? Like, I know I am, and I teach it. But sustainable resilience is about, how do you build capacity and recharge and refuel yourself so you can show up as the best version of you, whatever role you're in, whether you're, a mom or an aunt or a sister or a friend or a leader or a baseball coach or whatever hat you're wearing. How do you show up as your best self in a world where you feel like you don't have the space to even breathe? And so that's really where I started looking at, how do we build that sustainable resilience? How do we build what I call momentum micro moves, right? Those small intentional habits that you can build so that you can build on what I call unstoppable momentum, right? Which is, how do you use any change or challenge or the so muchness as the catalyst to continue to move forward and live the life and live and lead in a way that you were meant to live and lead.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love that your message comes from the people that you get to speak for and speak with. It's not just an idea that you had. It's not something you Googled. It's something that you really ask. And like, folks, she actually asks ahead of time what is actually on the hearts and minds of the people she's going to speak with is the better way to say it. And what Kim just shared with you is evidence, not just of a couple, but of thousands and thousands of people. And that's incredibly powerful. And I want to ask if I can, two different, because you're unstoppable momentum. I love the word momentum. I'm a very picture driven kind of person as well, to kind of help people understand. So oftentimes if you think about a big locomotive, like a big train, all they do to keep that thing from rolling down the tracks is put just a little wooden block down. It has no chance to go anywhere. It's just a little wooden block. It's not much. You'd think it'd be two tons of concrete stopping it, right?
Yeah.
So that idea of how do I get even started?
Yeah.
And I know we're going to talk about some practical things here in a second, but just this idea of I want momentum.
Yeah.
But momentum comes after I get started. What is that? What have you found is that little block that you feel like prevents people from kind of taking that first step?
Yeah, well, and I think it's a couple things. First, I think so many people, just like resilience, and we're getting the definition wrong, because resilience doesn't mean powering through at all costs and enduring. It means what do you need to do to recharge and refuel yourself? And it's the same thing with momentum, because one of the, what I call momentum busters, right? One of the biggest things that holds us back is ourselves. And right now, with the so muchness that we're in, one of the biggest momentum busters is we're not pausing, right? We're not giving ourselves permission to even breathe or to take care of ourselves or to rebuild that capacity or to understand what do we need to do to even move, right? And so many people think, oh, momentum, go, 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 do, right? Hustle, hustle, hustle. And it's not. True momentum is knowing when to pause and when to push, right? I'm all about grit and gritting up and let's go, right? And you still have to know when to pause and when to refuel and when to recharge and when to just take a beat and take a breath and breathe, which many people aren't doing right now. And so I think that's one of the biggest blocks, right? And then I think the other piece is, especially in the world we're in today, we don't have to know all the answers.
Mm.
And we don't have to feel ready, right? Before we start. You just have to take the next best step. And that is really, right, how you build that unstoppable momentum. It's not that all of us have this magic pill or know all the answers. It's we keep moving forward, but we also know when to pause and when to push or when to keep moving forward. And that is really what will allow you to build capacity and sustain and grow your capacity and your momentum in the middle of, right, the so muchness, where so many of us right now are feeling like this because we've got 100 different balls and the inputs and all of the things coming at us from every direction.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I appreciate that they use the word "and" a couple different times there, because it's not this ignore the so muchness. It's not the ignore all of the things. It's a matter of like actually look at it straight in the eye and then start doing some things and making some choices and decisions. And, you know, I the second point around some of this that this is a little deeper probably than some people think about sometimes, but when you're going through it. Mm-hmm. So the so muchness, do you feel like the heaviness of that is more, this may be an and, is it more I want to be accountable, I want to be responsible, I want to show up for people, I want to be great at what I do, that, and also the people at home, like that weight of not being able to be your best for your family and for your loved ones, and having both of those things in each of your hands?
Yeah.
Do you feel like that resonates with your message and who you talk to? Because both things, I think, are probably true.
Yeah, I think it's an and, 100%, right? And for so many of us, we're giving and giving and giving to everyone and everything else. And we say, oh, we're then going to go home and be with our family and our friends, right? But often, instead of getting the best of us, they're getting what's left of us. Because right, we only have so much capacity. And you know, and I talk about this, and you've heard this in my keynotes, right? But like what do we do when our phone battery gets on 10%? Right? We panic, many of us, and then we recharge it. And for many of us, we're recharging our phones more than we're recharging ourselves. And it is not sustainable. And at that point, you're not showing up as the best version of you at work, in your leadership role, and in your life. And so how do you give yourself that permission in the middle of that so muchness to say, right, I'm allowed, which I know we'll talk about in a minute, but I think that's where, right, it all connects together. And for many of us, right, I think, and I always talk about this, there is no normal or new normal. There's only what is now and what is next. And things aren't going to slow down. They are not going to slow down. So how do you give yourself permission in the middle of the so muchness to do that? Because that's what's going to allow you to show up as your best self. And so no one's coming to save us. No one's coming to save us. No one's going to come and manage your calendar or allow you to set boundaries or allow you to take that 30 minutes in the morning so you can go work out or breathe, right? No one is coming to do that for you. And you mentioned it earlier, TJ, you said the word choose, right? Or choice. Every single one of us has a choice every single day in how we show up, right? With our words, our thoughts, our actions, and our attitude. And we get to decide because right, many of us, you talked about the block. The biggest block is ourselves. It's our little inner bully, Edna. Name your inner bully. It takes away their power. And they tell us, oh, we can't make that time for ourselves, or we can't do this, or this will never work, or I've already tried that, or I'm not good enough. And so we have to start really looking at how we're talking to ourselves and realizing we have more power than we recognize in a world where, right, our bodies and our brains aren't made for it. And we're wired for negativity. We have 50 to 70,000 thoughts a day. How many are negative versus positive, right? Do you say, I get to be here or I have to be here? Are you looking at what's going wrong or are you looking at what's going right? You get to decide. You have that power. And that's where so many of us feel like helpless. And then we get online and we look at the news and we look at social media and we look at all the negativity around us. We get to decide every single day how we're showing up.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I
I
get
love that.
very passionate about this.
No, I'm totally with you. Like I have chills actually right now. And when I got to hear you speak and you talked about naming your inner critic, your whatever words you want to
Empath.
use that
Yeah.
yourself. Yeah. I actually chose JT because it's my name. Obviously, my name's TJ. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like JT is like the opposite,
I
right?
love
And
that.
so like it just kind of made sense to me. But
Shut it down.
yeah, but I tell you what's interesting too about something you shared is you said the word capacity a couple different times,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, the I think, in my personal experience too, but people often have a hard time saying that what they used to be able to handle feels overwhelming
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
in their work life, for
Mm-hmm.
example, right? But maybe the home life is exponentially more complicated.
Right.
And then so when people say that they feel like this sense of pride of I don't want people to think I can't. So I'm
Right.
going to keep
Like I'm
taking on more.
failing.
I'm
Right.
I'm going to keep saying yes. And one thing that you speak about and you really are passionate about too. Again, you can hear it in her voice. You should be watching on YouTube as well if you can see it in her face. But the idea around capacity being and I think the actual words is it matters a little bit more than time management
Oh,
during
100%.
some of these
Right.
hard
Because it's
seasons. So
about
tell me more about that.
energy, right? It's
Mm,
about energy management. Like time management is fine, but it's bigger than that, right?
mm,
It is about energy management and is about the choices that we make. And what is that, right? We don't need another Calm app. We don't need another planner, right? What we need is space to recharge and refuel ourselves, right? And
mhm.
so what are those momentum micro moves, those small intentional habits that you're going to do to rebuild your emotional bandwidth or your physical energy or your mental clarity, or like also giving ourselves space to think. This is one of the things that I talk about with a lot of leaders. Like most of us don't even have white space on our calendars anymore. And we're going from meeting to meeting to meeting, or if you're at home and you're you're a mom and you're going from this event, taking the kid, right, the Uber. I remember those days as a
Mm,
mom, right? I'm the Uber taking the kids to all the things and not even having time to eat, or eating like in the car, or doing whatever we need to do. And how do we start building in some space for ourselves? Because this is what, TJ, it's not just me saying this, like the research is showing,
mhm.
right? What happens when we do give ourselves space, right? Our capacity increases, right? Our well being increases, our stress reduces, our mental clarity increases, right? And so, how can you create more of that without guilt
Mm,
in your day? How can you build in those 5 minutes, those 10 to 15 minutes, those 30 minutes, those momentum micro moves during your day to allow you to just breathe? Or to
yeah.
listen to your podcast, for example.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, it's like this idea of space and grace.
Yes, 100%.
That and self-awareness and oftentimes too the one of the hardest things that I hear from people as well is like you've already touched on, nobody's going to come do this for us.
No.
And it doesn't mean that somebody doesn't care, but if we consistently act like we're not overwhelmed, if we act like we can take on more,
Mm-hmm.
if we act like we love the full schedule because that's when we feel valued,
Busy.
people correct, people are going to then and this is just something I've had to learn myself, how we treat ourselves is actually coaching other people on how to treat us.
Right. And you're modeling that behavior.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So the thing that you said earlier about the block, and I hear people say all the time, like, this is like a bigger thought, but like the only person preventing you from living the life you want to be living and thinking the way you want to and feeling the way you want to and all these things is often you.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those things to where like, I get that that's a simple thought, but
Mm-hmm.
maybe that's the starting point, right?
Right.
Is understanding like, what are you telling yourself? And are you saying, I'll just keep doing everything because we choose certainty over uncertainty?
Right.
If
And
we choose,
right. And you don't want to disappoint people and you don't want to say no,
oh
right?
yeah,
So how do you resign as general manager of the universe? How do you let go of all the things, right? And focus on what matters most? And I know you're
yeah,
really focused on that right now. And
yeah.
a part of that is, years ago I would do this exercise called my calendar and my checkbook.
Mm.
Now, it can be online banking, whatever. But every month, at the end of the month, I would go to my calendar and I would go to my checkbook and I would say, are these in alignment with
Mm.
what I say my priorities are?
Yeah.
Whether it's priorities at work, whether it's priorities with my family. And there would be times where things were completely off kilter, out of whack, right? And so how do I then, right, recenter? How do I make sure I'm focusing on what matters most, and not on all the things, but on like
Mm.
what truly matters most? Because for
Yeah.
many of us, we're just going through the motions. And
Yeah.
because we've always done that, or because we've always said yes to that, well, what would happen if, you said no? What would happen? Right?
Wouldn't that be something?
That would leave more space for the yeses that really matter.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you're giving the impression that saying yes to everything fills your cup, people are going to give you more opportunities to say yes.
100%.
So it's a matter of like just being honest about it all,
Yeah.
and that's one thing too. I'm a very focused on the so what, and you even were sharing some feedback about some of my stuff, and you're like, so what? It's like what's the point? What's the purpose? And one of the things that again, hearing you speak, one of the things that I've really valued is you're not just saying like how important this is. You're saying like if having, and I know we're talking about the word resilience differently, but having that resilience and having momentum and all of that, like when you start to settle into that space, how do you start to then lead your team, love your people, care for yourself, give back? How do you start to then like kind of become your full self instead of just that surviving self?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that is, again, where you go back to giving yourself that permission, right? Like it all has to start with ourselves. It has to, and you mentioned self-awareness earlier. It has to start with us. It has to start with that self-awareness, right? And I think the definition of insanity is like doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result.
Yeah.
Well, if you keep doing the same thing over and over, you're going to continue to be and feel that. So how do you stop, right? How do you give yourself permission? How do you say I'm allowed? How do you really give yourself that, to your point, that space and that grace? And that's the first step. That is the first step. And realizing that you have agency and you have power and you have choice in doing that. Even when you may not feel it, even when it may be uncomfortable to say some of these things out loud, such as, I'm not going to do that anymore, or no, or not yet, or I don't have the space for that right now, but here's what I could do instead, right? Like it's part of it's giving people the language so they feel more comfortable doing that too.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think there's like this slow chipping away at, cause I've had a lot of people, they love to do multiple projects. They love to do all the things. I'm not a huge believer in multitasking. I think we just do a lot of single tasking, just a lot of it. But the sense is, so if we really were to ask people, do you want to do great work or do you want to do good enough work? Like, no one's going to say good enough work.
Right.
But if we don't do what you're talking about right now, we can't help but at times do the good enough work because we just have to get stuff. There's deadlines, right? There's good enough stuff. Like it's just life. And so like, that's the, so what, right?
Well, right. And that's also this whole notion of balance. There is no such thing as balance, right? It's blend, it's integration. And there are going to be times where, like when I was caregiving for my parents, right? Where that had to be my focus, that and the kids in the middle of the sandwich. So you know what? Some things at work had to slide. And that was okay. I had to give myself the grace and permission to do that. And now I have zero regrets for that. And so I think a part of that is recognizing like we're all not going to be 100% all the time. Like sometimes our 80% is like literally the best we could do that day. Right. And so that's where it's again, going back to giving yourself grace, not beating yourself up, shutting down your inner bully, naming them, remember, because it takes away their power, shutting them down and saying, here's what I am going to do today. or this is the most important thing for me right now. Right. And then also not only the grace for yourself, but being willing to ask others for grace. So when I was caregiving with my parents, and right, no one tells you how hard it is with aging parents. And they've had a lot of health challenges the last 10 years. And when I was a couple of years ago, mom was in the middle of some of her cancer treatment. And I felt like every conversation I was having was starting with, I'm sorry. I'm sorry this is late. I'm sorry I didn't get back to you, right? With it. Because we think, right, immediate response. Like you respond to me or you send me a text, like I need to be responding immediately. And I realized that was creating this whole shame spiral. I was feeling bad about myself. I was feeling more behind, right? And all of these things. And so I started shifting that to thanks for your grace. And here's the thing. It changed everything because people want to give us grace, right? They want to show up in that way, just like we would want to show up in that way for them. And so like I stopped sorrying all over myself and stopped shoulding all over myself and said, thanks for your grace. And I still use that tool today, right? In some of those busier seasons, because we're all going to have busy seasons. And with those busy seasons, it's also, I talk about pre-recovery and post-recovery. Like I'm in a busy season right now. TJ's in a busy season right now because this is our speaking season where it's busy, right? So I knew I needed to do some pre-recovery ahead of time of that busy season where I'm resting, I'm refueling, I'm recharging, I'm giving myself space, I'm going to my lake house, I'm just breathing, right? Sleeping, doing what I need to do, walking, exercising. And then at the end of May, when I come back off this busy stretch, I have the first 3 days of June blocked off on my calendar for pre-recovery, for post-recovery, right? So I can like rest, I can recharge, I can catch up on things around the house. For me, like I've been able to do that because we have those busy seasons and not everyone may have a busy season like that, but there are certain seasons where things are more full.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's oftentimes the result of the work we've put in leads to more work. And so then it just, it's a very intentional, how do I want to show up for the work and what's a way that I can show up that I'd be proud of?
Right. As my best self. And to do that, this is what I need to do. Yeah.
And it is a quality over quantity, and like you've talked about just this idea of saying no. And there's some elegant ways to, if right now isn't a time, if somebody else needs to do it, if this is a delegate opportunity, there's lots of things besides no, quote unquote, to say to people, because some people just like, well, if I say no, they won't ask me again. Well, if that's the case, my personal opinion and my professional advice is have a deeper relationship with that person, because if you're one response away from losing all relation,
it wasn't a relationship meant to be.
Right. It was very transactional at that point, and there's times to where people actually honor, because again, you're leading by example. So especially if you're leading a team, your team is going to model your type of behavior. So if you go ask them, how are things going? And when they ask you, how are things going? And they know you're overwhelmed and you say, we're good.
We're great. Everything's awesome. Right. And that's that toxic positivity of woo, yay.
Yeah.
Right.
So when you go ask them, no matter how busy they are, what kind of space have you created? Unintentionally, you've created this. We push, we grind, we go no matter what, and we smile through it.
Right.
That's what you're coaching. That's what the culture, right? That's the culture that you're creating, as opposed to how are you actually doing? Because you would want them to respond if they were overwhelmed. Well, I also, like a little tip for the leader, your team also needs to trust that you will also tell them when you need something so that you can show up better for them.
Yeah, that's that vulnerability. That's that transparency that's so important right now. And that leaning into that emotional intelligence, that emotional agility, and saying, this is where I'm at, and why that becomes so important.
Yeah. And that's the why is, if I want to show up fully for my teams and for the people that I love, right? Keep that, have that be the lens that you look at all of the different things that you maybe you need to say that you get to, as opposed to have to do. But there are some things you have to do, right? We can't ignore that too. So,
and there are busy seasons, and there are moments where we have to grit up, right? I call
Yeah.
it gritting up, not giving up, right?
Yeah.
There is a season, right, where that grit, I mean, I'm not saying you don't need grit. We all need grit because that's what allows you to keep moving forward, right? Even
Yeah.
when it's hard, even when you don't have all the answers. But the grit without the grace is not sustainable. You have to
Yeah.
have both. So you have to have that grace for yourself and you have to give yourself that permission.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a perfect, I've been wanting to dive into this just because I'm so curious about the permission and the you are allowed.
Yeah.
And I think it's something if people actually understood the power of allowing themselves to feel certain things, to do or not do certain things. And even, I see, if you don't follow Kim on social media, you should, because she posts a lot of things that people have actually written on a Post-its, and people, they've said, what is the thing that I want you to describe it more, but it's a matter of like, I am allowed, like just saying the words, you are allowed to whatever the thing is that's on your heart, on your mind. And like, what have you seen that people have been writing down? Like what are the things that you're seeing, but also what is the transformation you see in people when they actually sit there and think, I'm allowed to feel this and do this?
Yeah. And absolutely. And a part of this is, right, it's that self-awareness and it's giving yourself the grace and space. And so, and this whole concept of I'm allowed came about for me 24 years ago, right? When I was diagnosed with breast cancer at the age of 30, I was in the midst of planning my son Brandon's 2-year-old birthday party. And I heard those words. And I had a good friend from college, Patty. Patty was diagnosed at 24. And a couple years before me, she was the reason I found my lump. And she gave me a simple 2-sided note that I still have in my desk to this day. And it's all about, what do you need to feel and what do you need to do to give yourself the grace and permission? And it said, I am allowed, right? And so this is what I pass out. We'll put this in the show notes so everybody can have access. And I won't read all of this to you now, but it's right. It's, you are allowed to be frustrated, to feel behind, to be lonely, to be angry, to cry, to feel out of control, to feel overwhelmed, to feel scared, to wish this never happened to you or to others, to feel behind, to wonder what if, to long for simple things and simple times, to wish for more. But on the flip side, right? The flip side, you are allowed to find the good, to be grateful, to feel loved, to be excited, to feel hopeful, to realize you are not alone, to realize you are stronger than you ever thought, to be surrounded by people who care, to find joy, to find your grit, to give yourself grace, to do what you can, to learn to ask for help, to make a difference, to be you. Which side of the card are you on today? And I think for so many of us, we are on both sides of the card at the same time, right? It's, our emotions are not mutually exclusive, right? We can be both exhausted. I've been living in exhausted gratitude for years, right? With kids and the caregiving and the running a business. But as a part of that, it's then taking that to that next level of, what do I need to give myself permission to do? And there have been a lot of permissions, simple things like, I am allowed to take a lunch, because almost every single person I ask, how many of you actually take your lunch break? Right? Or I'm allowed to take PTO, or I'm allowed to be human, or I'm allowed not to have all the answers, or I'm allowed to cry. I'm allowed to feel what I need to feel. I'm allowed to find joy again, right? I'm allowed to say no. I'm allowed to set boundaries. I'm allowed to be excited. I had someone last week that said, I'm allowed to be excited about the new position that I'm taking, even though others aren't. Right? So what do you need to give yourself permission to do, to be, to feel right now in this moment? Because once you do that, that's then what allows you, once you give yourself that grace and that permission, that's then what allows you to then find the grit and keep moving forward and build that unstoppable momentum. But it has to start with the stop. And this is also where Edna, she gets loud and she makes excuses and she tells us, I can't take a lunch break, or I can't take 15 minutes for myself, or I can't go get that massage, or I have to act as if I know all the answers, right? Like Edna gets really loud during change, during uncertainty, during so muchness, right? The negativity. So What do you need to give yourself permission to do, to feel, to be, to say, I am allowed? What does that look like for you?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's a multiple, I love the words I am allowed because it's so rooted in power.
Yeah.
It's a spark.
Mm-hmm.
It's self-awareness, self-love, it's grace, it's both, but it's the thing that I appreciated the most is it's actually both sides.
100%.
And
100%.
I think a lot of times these days, a shift that I've really learned over the last year, which is a lot of what you're saying, but it's just kind of in a different way. And I'd love to hear kind of how you feel about this point specifically. But instead of that positivity that you talked about, toxic positivity, if you will, and really what that means, in my opinion, I think toxic positivity in any environment really creates a sense of expectation without real reality, a real view of reality, not your reality, not how you see the world, right? But it's also understanding like two things can be true. Mm-hmm. And when you say that, you know, I'm allowed to cry about a tough day. Mm-hmm. That's the thing is like, it actually eliminates the pressure of how people think you should be. Mm-hmm. It gives you permission and gives you power back into your most authentic, real self, not the one you want other people to see, but like the real you, because I'll just break through. People actually just want to see the real you.
Yeah. Right.
They don't want to see the best you that never, I mean, same thing with social media and same thing, all these things. Like we appreciate when people just show up as themselves. And that's honestly one of the things now, as I'm saying this out loud, one of the things that I recognized about you in the beginning is you know who you are. Mm-hmm. You know how you want to impact others. You know what's the most important thing to you. And that's the heart, like that's the energy and the excitement is like, you know how much that transformed your life when you decided to say, you know what, I'm allowed.
Right. Right.
You know, when you got the note that said I'm allowed.
Yeah.
Like,
and to feel, right? Yeah. To feel, to choose, and to do. And the other piece of that, TJ, and you know this, so Patty, who had given me the handwritten note, she passed away at the age of 29. But I want you all to think about this, right? Because it really reinforces about how we're showing up. She passed away at 29. She wrote me that handwritten note. That handwritten note has now been passed out to over 800,000 people. So you think about a simple handwritten note. You think about how each of us are showing up for ourselves and for those around us, and the ripple effect and the impact that makes, right? And that's where the power lies. And, you know, there is a lot of toxic positivity right now of, oh, just be positive, right? Find the good, and I am all for finding the good, right? That is on this side of the card. That's what allows us to move forward. But it doesn't mean you don't ignore the hard. You know, we just can't let the hard in life harden us. And we have a choice in how we're going to show up. And to your point, right? It is being who we are. Like, I hope people right now can't hear the little fan that I just had to turn on because y'all, I'm menopausal and I'm all of a sudden hot. And so I have this little fan next to my desk that I turned on because I got hot all of a sudden. Right. And so, but it's being real. People want the real you. And what do you need to give yourself permission and grace today? This is your opportunity to write yourself that permission slip and to say, I am allowed to. And what would you say to yourself?
Yeah. Yeah. And even if the I am allowed is I'm allowed to pursue my dreams.
Yes. I'm allowed to dream bigger. Right.
Yeah. 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 This isn't a limiting.
No.
This is a strike of a match.
Right.
This isn't an eliminating of more. This is a how you show up in the whatever you have and the whatever you create and whatever you cultivate. That's really what this is all about. And,
it can be both,
you know, and again, yeah. Well, and I think that's the thing is I think allowing people to be both and not feel, like you said earlier, not feeling shame and regret and guilt and all these different things, because at one time there was the thing that we said that we wanted, the thing that used to give us energy no longer does. Yeah. And we if we don't stop and pay attention and do kind of a little audit of how am I actually feeling? Mm-hmm. Like I'm allowed to slow down enough to pause and breathe. And the thing that, again, I appreciate about you too, is you have recognized over the years that how you want to show up for other people. And when you didn't take care of yourself, when you didn't go on the walks, when you didn't do the pre-recovery, when you didn't do some of those other things, you were just on a go season, right?
I burned out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like this thinking that it's an unlimited cup because you love to do it.
Yeah.
But it's actually, you can love to do it and fill your cup.
Yeah.
And I personally, I think that's the only way when you talk about consistently doing anything. Like my workout routines and my sauna and my cold plunge and my meditation that I do and my journal, like all of that is not just because I feel like a fraud if I don't tell people on whatever forum I'm on that I do that, because that's what successful people do. That's not what this is about.
Right.
This is about me unplugging. This is about me doing what I need to do. And this is where even like, just even our correspondence, it's like, hey, you know what? Next week's better for me. Right. But I think we all need to lean into each other's seasons and recognize. And I don't know if I know there's some practical tools for individuals to use, but how do you feel like other people, it's like this picture again, I've seen this video of this little kid holding on in a pool. He's holding on to the little lifeguard thing that separates the deep end from the shallow end, and just he's fighting and clawing at it. And then he just puts his feet down and he can stand up in the water. So how can we recognize, like, what are things you're seeing that we can recognize in the people we love the most to say, hey,
well, and
how can I show up for you?
Yeah. And I think one of the things, and something you said reminded me, right? So feeling what you need to feel, like this isn't just a personal thing. This is also a leadership thing. This is also a culture thing. Right. And pre-COVID, I would have CEOs call and say, Kim, we want you to come. We want you to talk about change. Our people are struggling. They're overwhelmed, but we don't want you to talk about feelings. We don't want you to talk about emotions. Now, fast forward, those same CEOs are calling and say, I was wrong. I need it. Our people need it now more than ever. Right. This is not soft. This is required in the world that we're in today. And so as a part of that, I think it's right. It's not just you are allowed, it's we are allowed, right? Like how do you build that collective resilience, or with your family or with your teams? And not only that, it's the grace, it's the permission, it's the feeling, it's the choosing, and it's the doing, right? The doing matters. And so how can you really lean into that and recognize, you talked about the kid in the pool, right? And holding on. I use the example and the analogy of holding on to a roller coaster, right? And often, right, we're on this roller coaster, we're holding on tight to all the things we can't control, all the things we're not giving ourselves permission to do, all the things holding us back, keeping us stuck. What would happen if we put our hands up and let go? Because letting go changes the whole ride. It's what I call resigning as general manager of the universe. Letting go of all the things you can't control, right? Because we're wired for negativity. We're wired for certainty. We like control. In positive psychology, it's called locus of control. How do we focus on what we can do, on what we can control? And how do we let go of the rest? Can you change it? Yes or no? If the answer is no, let it go. If the answer is yes, you then have to decide, is this worth it? Is this right in alignment with what I say my priorities are, or anchored to my values, or what matters most to me? You get to decide that, not someone else, you.
Yeah. Yeah. And this idea of the power that you just said, again, you get to decide and you get to choose. And, I talk with a lot of different people about this. It's a really simple thought, but either our environment is the product of us or we're the product of our environment. And understanding that thinking in a different way can sometimes isolate you. So when you decide, and I know a lot of times people are on their own personal growth journey and they really, they're going to listen to you say what you're saying. And you're like, you know what? I am allowed. I'm allowed to do what I want, when I want to do it, and how I want to do it, and who I want to do it. Like, I'm allowed, like this thing. There's an emotion tied to that. There's not I read a book. That's the brain. Right. Saying like, I know, okay, like what Kim said makes sense to my brain.
Right.
But like connecting your head and your heart is so, so powerful, because your friend circle may not be on that same journey.
Right. Right. And like,
And
and you may not recharge and refuel the same way, or you may
correct.
not need the same things from an I am allowed standpoint. Like you talked about the cold plunge. Y'all, just so you know, I'm not doing a cold plunge. Not happening. Not happening. Right. But
Yeah.
I will walk for days. I will lift my
Yeah.
weights and do my strength training, but I am not getting in a cold plunge. Not happening. Right. But you love that. And that's a part of your routine. And I think that's the other piece, right? We are allowed to do things that work for us, because what works for you may not work for someone else. And so we have to decide what's right. What does our own resilience operating system look like? What are those things that are going to recharge us and refuel us and build our own momentum? What is that for us? Because it will look different for every single one of us and every single one of your listeners today.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing too is the multiple hats that I'm curious about around, one of the things that I like to do with people is I really kind of sit down, like, where are you now? And where do you want to be with whatever the hats you're wearing? And, I know there are typically a lot of women listening to this, and truthfully, women now especially have a lot of expectations, more than they probably ever had, of being 3 and 4 and 5 different things to different groups of people that they all love, that they all care about, right? It could be at work, it could be at home, it could be as a wife, it could be as a mom, it could be as a community member, it could be as a speaker, it could be as an author, it could be all these different things. But there's not really a lot of like, how do I keep in control about how each of those things is affecting the other things? And I kind of consider it like a wheel, like a pie, like Trivial Pursuit kind of pie piece thing. But it really is just this matter of like, how do I feel at work? How do I feel at home? How do I feel like I'm doing in those things? Because like, we may not say it a lot, but we're feeling it all the time. Like, if all I'm doing is giving my kid $5 to go get lunch because I don't have time to make his lunch, like that'll chip away at how we feel about ourselves. And that is some of the so muchness, is just all of these things that maybe we once wished for is now getting harder and harder. And so I just wanted to call that out and just say, like, that's all part of it. It's all things that, and again, I was sitting in the audience listening to you speak and listening to the amount of people at my table go, oh my gosh, that is me. Oh my gosh. I feel every bit of that,
We're wearing all the hats, and many have been wearing all the hats our whole lives, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is nothing new. It is now just amplified in the so muchness that we're in. And then like unrealistic expectations, right? Like you mentioned, like making the lunch. Like, I would make a lunch, but like, I'm not going to take I don't cook, TJ. So I'm not going to make homemade treats to take to school. Like, that is not me. I learned to let that guilt go a long time ago. Right now, I don't even think they'll let you because of the allergens and stuff. But anyway, like, I had to learn, like, right, I am allowed to take store-bought treats to school and give myself permission, right? And so I think for each of us, it is, and at any given point in time, like when I was caregiving, like, I felt like I was in the sandwich and I wasn't then serving my kids the way I needed to, but they understood and they gave me grace. And I was exactly where I needed to be at the moment. Right. And so, like, there are going to be different transitions and points in our lives. Like, after I went through my divorce, or during my cancer, or, now we're an empty nester and our kids need different things from us, or aging parents, or our teams that we're leading. Right. We're all going to have these different phases in our lives with all of the different hats. And that's what I mean by balance, right? Like, there's no such thing where everything's going to be perfectly balanced all at the same time, because there will be points in your life where certain things will demand more of you than others. And so it's okay to resign as general manager of the universe and to let go of this quest to be perfect in all the areas all at the same time. That's nobody. We're all imperfectly perfect right where we are. Me with my menopausal fan and all.
Yeah. Well, That's such the reason why I brought that up is just because it's like acknowledging kind of what is as opposed to what could be. Sometimes if we just focus on what could be all the time, it's really hard to kind of like give permission to be people where they are, and just like, it's okay if you say that you are, and there are, like you said, different seasons where different things are going to require more of you. And, one of the things that I love about you and what you do as well is you give people practical things, one, to maybe recognize when they're feeling a little bit overwhelmed and they're starting to maybe now identify their JT or their Edna. They're starting to recognize their so muchness in their life that they haven't been doing the you are allowed. So obviously there's some practical things that I think are really powerful that you have to share, to offer, whatever it may be. So people can start, like you said, that block. How do we start to move some things out of the way? How do we start to recognize that that maybe some of the purpose is our teams, is our leaders, is ourself, as leaders, everything that we do impacts everything else. And so what is that thing that people can start to recognize about themselves when they are in that so muchness, that then they can start making a change? They can start making a new choice so that they can start to build some of that momentum and resilience that you talk about.
Yeah. Well, and I think that would be where, right, you lean into those momentum micro moves that I talked about. Like, and one of those small intentional things you can do when life or work, right, feels heavy. One thing you can do, take a minute, take 60 seconds, just stop. Don't look online. Don't do anything. Think about, what am I feeling right now in this moment? And then dive a little bit deeper. Like, can I control this, right? Like whatever it is I'm upset about or worried about or overwhelmed about, or maybe I'm excited about something. Like, what is the next best step? You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to have all the path, but like, what is the next best step I can take, right? That gets you out of the spiral. And often too, right? Like, we all focus on our to-do list and all the things we have, and we're all busy. And we will all have our to-do list until we die. And we get something done, we may check it off, we may say yay, and then we add something else, right? It's constant disappointment. So what are your must-dos today? What are the 3 things that you have to get done today? Because here's what happens. If we focused on the entire list, what would happen if you focus on all the things you needed to do right now? Immediate overwhelm. So how can you focus on the next thing, not all the things? Because then we spiral. Right? So the first is that stopping, that 60 seconds, right? Pausing, feel what you need to feel, acknowledging it, and then asking yourself, what is the next best step? Another momentum micro move is, instead of focusing on all the things, focus on the one next thing you need to do. Doesn't have to be everything.
Yeah. Yeah. And the one thing, the power of that one thing is, I'm curious about your thoughts around confidence to get to do some of these things. I think a lot of most of the people listening have been with us for a while. And so they're in this personal growth. They're in this, like, I know I can, and they're optimistic. And I'm curious about how optimism shows up in your life in some different ways too, but really understanding there's a lot of people who've been inspired, probably like they're inspired now. And then they have this little thing in the back saying, this is another thing you're going to start, but you're not going to do. This is another thing you're going to start but not finish.
Right.
Like, you've developed the habit of not maintaining your habits.
Right. So add in one powerful word, yet. Right? It's what I call the yet effect. Yet turns it can't be done into it hasn't been done yet. And if anyone can do it, I can do it. Or collectively, right, as a team, if you're talking about at work, like, we can do it. It's the yet effect and the power of that, right? And then the other thing, because you started to go there, right, with Edna or JT, of fear, right? And one of the biggest fears we have when we're doing these sorts of things is what? Fear of failure.
Yeah.
And so how can you start shifting, right? This is that momentum mindset shift. Like, how can you start shifting the way you see failure? How could you celebrate the attempt? I call it celebrating the attempt, right? How can you start seeing failure as a way you stretch, you grow, you learn? But we're all taught at a very young age, failure is bad, but it's not. It's how you grow. It's how you stretch. So let's celebrate the attempt, the missed opportunity, right? The missed try, or the no that you got on that sales call, or what did you learn from it? How do we get better next time, right? We're going to celebrate the attempt, celebrate the stretches, celebrate the no's, turn those into feed forward, not feedback. Because we're all going to make mistakes. And if we can start shifting the way we see failure, that changes everything. But again, our biggest momentum buster is ourselves, and it's Edna. So how do we start shutting Edna down? What does that look like for you? Celebrate the attempts, right? Celebrate the attempts.
Yeah, and that's the optimism, and that's why I kind of
realistic optimism, right? Which means I'm not saying there's not going to be hard, but even in the midst of the hard, where's the opportunity? What is the good from this? How can you grow from this? How can you stretch from this? And what is the next best step for you to move forward? Your next best step may be on some days, you know what? I got out of bed today. I didn't shower. I didn't wash my hair, but I got out of bed. Like, because that's the other thing is there's no comparing, right? We often go down the comparison path. And I know you and I talked about this because in our industry, it's so easy to do. And, you know, I think for each of us, we have to own who we are. And, right, we can't compare our hards. We can't compare our wins because we don't know what that person went through. We don't know what it took for them to get there. So we need to focus on ourselves, right? Like we need to have, how are you not only celebrating the attempts, how are you celebrating? You all saw me with my Zoom mullet there, by the way. I have on my leggings with my cute top, right? Being who you are. How do you ring your bell? How do you celebrate also the wins? I call it Ring the Bell Friday. Every Friday I ring my bell, or every time I get to work with a new client, I ring my bell. How are you celebrating? Not just the big stuff and the weddings or the birthdays or the, you know, the promotion at work or the graduations, but how are you celebrating the little things along the way? Because that's what allows you to then build that resilience.
Yeah. I don't know if everybody, I hope you all heard the energy shift that just happened there.
I get excited when I'm talking about ringing the bell and I'm talking about celebrating the attempts, because often that's one of the biggest momentum busters that holds us back.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the idea, and for me, optimism isn't that everything, and when people talk about silver lining, it's not about silver lining. It's not about only finding the good. And, you know, people, the glass is half full and half empty. If you look at a glass, it just is. It doesn't mean that you see the negative in everything. My goal is, truthfully, around optimism and gratitude is really, I'm just grateful I have a glass in the first place. And I'm confident in my ability to make an impact, give effort.
Right.
So even if I don't succeed, I mean, I've been posting on social media for a long time. I've been posting positive quotes and all this stuff. Yeah. If I now, Facebook has this thing where they have memories and they send you back a memory of what you were doing 12 years ago. The things that I was saying, like I knew the heart of which I meant to say it, but it's a mess. I mean, it's just showing up. It's being consistent. And I've learned, and I've had people tell me along the way, like, don't do that and don't do this and do this and, you know, so on and so forth. But it's just a matter of being willing to try, being willing to do. And what Kim just said, your 3 things that you want to focus on your list. Have you tried that before? Are you the same person that you were when you tried it last time? Probably not. What is the one thing that you must do? Maybe you have a must-do list instead of a to-do list, a grocery list, or whatever, like a must-do list, like just...
Or a not-to-do list as well, right? Get yourself 100%. A not-to-do list. What are the things that you don't need to be doing? And then say, I am allowed to not do those.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. And this is why all of this makes so much sense for all of us, because there's so much of it. If we just looked in the mirror and gave ourselves some of this same talk that we're talking about right now. And again, it's lived experiences. This isn't just theory. This is actual things. Again, I've also done it and said it myself. I watched people, a room full of hundreds of people in the talk that I got to see. And they were doing it too.
Right. And it is rooted in positive psychology and emotional intelligence, right? And neuroscience. So there's science behind it, but this is about, right, real feelings. This is about giving yourself the permission to first stop and have the self-awareness and give yourself the space and grace to say, I am allowed to. And then from there, right, find the grit and keep moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah. And the message that you share, the other thing I want to, the last thing I'll say before we wrap up here is a lot of times when you hear people talk about ways to do things that work for them, here's a strategy, here's a tool, here's a tactic, it meets us when we're at our peak state, when we have the most energy, the post coffee, the surrounded by friends energy. But the thing I appreciate the most about you, the You Are Allowed and the So Muchness, is you're meeting people at a time to where it's the thoughts they have right before they go to bed, the thoughts they have when they're getting ready in the morning, the quiet moments, the things that we're really saying to ourselves and thinking to ourselves and feeling in our hearts, that then we just, between the certain hours of the day, we act like they're not there. But then before the day starts, and then whenever we're actually home alone. And that's one thing that I really recognize is like, you know what, I'm allowed to feel both. And even today, like in the morning, say, I am allowed to be positive. I'm allowed to be grateful. I'm allowed to see the good in others. I'm allowed to, if you saw her social media today, I'm allowed to meet the Nick who gave me a compliment and not tell them and shy him away. Nick gave Kim a compliment on her hair because it does look great.
My hair looked good today because I had used dry shampoo for the last like 6 days, and I washed it today because I knew I was going to be with TJ and all of you today.
Yeah. But, and the thing is though, like, I'm allowed to see the good in others is what you said right after that. Yeah. And so maybe that's the intention. But like when the emotion is there, which is in the mornings, it's not when you're in the middle of the hustle bustle. It can be, right? It can be it could be at lunchtime too, but it's really like in the evening, whenever your energies come back down and you're more in your emotional state, not your performance state, your present state. And you really think, you know what? I am allowed to relax, not out of guilt, not out of shame, not because I'm a procrastinator, not because I'm lazy, not because I'm tired. I'm allowed because I'm making choices for my life.
No, 100%.
That's where you settle into these things. And it gives me the chills even saying it and thinking about it, because in all reality, like, we're all just humans, but you're elevating the most humanness out of us, right, so that we can show up as ourselves empowered, right, and through a lens of, right, like I said, the permission and allowed. So
in our lives and in our workplaces, right? Yeah. As leaders and as humans, right? That's what we all need to get back to.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Kim. I have so many takeaways that I'm going to capture as well. Luckily, I have this recording, so I can listen to this again and start to apply all these different things. And, as always, I want to make sure that event planners, leaders, people anywhere, if they want to get in touch with you, because I think that the whole world needs to hear your message, truthfully. Not just one, like you said earlier, not just one kind of person, not just one group, not just men, not just women, not just every single person needs to hear this group, because you're meeting them right where they are and you're giving them something that they can use on that same day and that same moment that they can use for the rest of their lives. And we need more of that. We need more of you in the world. So how can people connect with you? How can they read and see more about you? How can they benefit from everything you've created?
Sure. You can go to my website, kimbecking.com, and also all the socials. And also, I know, TJ, we talked about if we can share a link in the show notes so that you can, on my website, but we'll give you the direct link so you can download your own version of the You Are Allowed card. It's a PDF that you can print out and use in your own life.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for being willing to share that with everybody here. I know I actually have your card here on my desk with me too. So it's something that I actually, full transparency, I took a couple extras when I was at your 100%. Last keynote event.
Yes.
And I shared, there's like different sizes of the card. There's even like a little wallet size card. That's the one I took a bunch. And I started handing them out to people. Yeah. And just said, just in case. Yeah, there it is. So just in case you forgot. You are allowed, and anyway, so the impact that you are creating and the ripple effect of what you're doing.
Patty, right? Too, yeah. Right? Yeah. How we all show up in the world, because we never know the impact we're going to make. Yeah. And that connection.
Yeah. Yeah. The human connection is that at the root of it all. And that card, and I'm sure you think about Patty every time somebody says that they're allowed to do something and you see how it transforms their life. And it's just a special thing that I'm so glad that you have on your heart. And then again, you get to share it with the rest of the world. So Kim, thank you for being here and being the type of person you are. Again, in my personal life, my professional life, you are making a profound impact on me that I only hope that I can continue to make an impact on other people in the world that you've done for me. And for the audience, I will wrap up with simply saying, I will just phrase it the way that Kim would phrase it. You are allowed. And also letting some things go is going to be one of the most powerful things, I think, for you to be able to focus on. Focus on the things you can control and let it go if you can't. But you are allowed to feel what you feel, both sides of the card. And I hope that you recognize that in this world of the so muchness, that you have people like him who see you and honor you and are here to serve you and help you through whatever you want to do so that you can show up as your best self, your true self, and the self that you're proud of. You live a life that you're proud of, not one out of pressure, but one out of presence and love for yourself and love for the people that you have in your life. And I'll wrap up like I always do and just remind you that you do have the power and the ability to reshape your mindset, to make new choices, and you are allowed to make new choices in your life. So until the next episode, I appreciate you and thank you.